Lauren, good morning, welcome. How are you doing today?
Good.
I'm glad you came into the counseling office. What's going on? Tell me about what's going on. How can I help you?
I don't know. Well, I'm a junior, and I feel like I just don't know what to do with my life after high school.
Okay. So you're at a place where you feel like for some reason you should know and you don't know, and that's got you feeling lost?
Yeah, all my friends are starting to think about colleges that they want to go to and apply to, and I feel like that hasn't even crossed my mind.
Okay. So that's your friends all kind of moving in this direction. Is this at the heart of what you feel is going on with you?
Well, yeah, because they're all talking about colleges and I'm not, so I feel unintentionally outcasted by them.
Okay.
Just because I don't have that in common. I haven't thought about it at all.
So not that they're intentionally putting you out, but that's the
Right.
way you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you don't feel like you have the same sort of sense of direction that they seem to have at this time in their life.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the only place that you're feeling this sort of pressure?
Yeah. I mean, outside of that, we're still friends. We still get along. I do well in school. I just,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know. I was just going to say I noticed that. I looked over your Aries, knowing you were coming in, checked you out a little bit, see where you're at, and you seem to be doing really well. You're on track to graduate. You know, as you were last time we talked, but you know, this year you seem to be just moving right along without any real issues. I see again in math, you seem to have a little bit of a tougher time. I think your grade there right now is a C, but that's like the one C you have. The rest you've been holding true to like your A and B average. Yeah. So you're doing really well in school, and you're just not sure about the next step.
mm-hmm.
Well, I can assure you that it's not. You're not alone in that. That's pretty common for students, 11th graders, even 12th graders, people getting ready to walk the stage, and they haven't really decided where they want to go or what they want to do in the next steps. It's obviously comforting to have those things in place, but just to sort of let you know that you're not alone in that. You seem to be on track for graduation. That's something you say you're focused on.
Yeah.
So you're passionate about graduating. That means something to you. Is that something that is important to you? Why? Why is that important to you to graduate?
I don't know. I know it's important going into jobs and careers, and I have an older brother who graduated. I think it's normal, right, to want to graduate.
Okay. Yeah. So it's something that you've seen your older brother do. It's something that you feel in your family. You get that sense of importance. Your parents sort of. I know we talked before, but it seems like your parents are all supporting you and behind you and encouraging you, to do well in school and to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned career importance. So you are, I'd say, career oriented, or knowing that you want to get into something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think knowing my parents didn't graduate high school, and so I just seeing where they're at and their careers and their lives and how they've had to support us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know how important having that education behind you is.
Yeah.
Not that they don't work hard, but and I think that's why they support us so much in graduating, because they've had a tough time making a career for themselves.
So seeing their hard work and the things that they've had to sacrifice and put forth because of their own sort of professional limitations due to maybe what you're connecting to, like a lack of education. Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I'm really happy to hear all these things registering for you and clicking for you. So although you don't feel a clear sense of direction, you do seem to be able to put the things in line as to what needs to happen in order to sort of achieve these certain levels of success, if you will, or at least career security, right? Professional security. It's good. And so it sounds to me like there's a couple of things that maybe when we talk about goal setting, I think that might be a direction for us to look into in terms of like how to find a clearer path or feel a little bit more. See, this sense of loss, right? This sense of feeling lost. Sometimes if we set short-term goals to accomplish as we move along in this general direction, right? Graduation and things like that, then we can gain a sense of clarity and we can at least comfort in knowing that we're on a path somewhere and we don't lose sight of that. But I would definitely like to help you with resources that we have. Maybe start to explore some things and ask yourself some questions about career and post high school and what's my next step and that sort of thing. Sort of find some direction, or at least knock on some of those doors. How does that sound to you? I mentioned goal setting. That's one direction we can look. And there's a couple of things that I'd like to just jot down, if you will, just kind of keep us on track here. One thing that came up was graduation, right? And so we can definitely look at that. And another thing that came up was this sort of direction. All right, and I'll put a couple question marks after it because I think that's what really brought you in. And so those are a couple areas that we want to take a peek into today. But certainly before we move into that, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about goals and this idea of setting SMART goals. Have you heard of this before? SMART goals. SMART goals gives us a sort of a framework, way that we can think about or evaluate the effectiveness of our goals. Right? So we take SMART and we first want to make sure that our goal is specific. Right? It's clear, it's concise, it gives us direction, it's specific. Second is that it is meaningful. Right? And then that would be something that you're passionate about or something that is meaningful to you, not necessarily to the people in your life. We don't want to set goals necessarily based on what other people tell us is important, but what we believe to be is important. And so we have these two things that we'll talk about here, and we'll make sure that we stay on a meaningful path with our goals. The third, or the A, is attainable. We want to make sure that our goal is attainable, that it's possible for us to achieve it, that we have the resources available to us, or we know how to access the resources that are necessary for attaining or achieving whatever the goal may be. And so that's a way to measure that. And that they're realistic, right? So we don't want to set a goal that has like an unrealistic timeline, right? I don't want to give myself an unrealistic timeline, making the goal now that was attainable no longer attainable, right? And then the final is that it's time bound, or it's measurable in the sense of time, when I'm going to accomplish it. What pieces, how can I break this thing down into smaller chunks, right? Step by step, so that I can look back and see what sort of progress I'm making on my goal. How does that sound like? What do you think about that framework?
It makes sense. I think it's definitely doable.
Do you think we can set some goals that meet those criteria? That could be a smart goal.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're pretty much on track to graduate. Your grades, you're getting all of your credits. You're not falling off. But if you were to look at your classes, and you said that if there was one area that you could sort of beef up or improve, what would it be for you?
Math.
Math, yeah. And so for you, would you say that that's what's the biggest struggle with math for you?
I just don't really fully understand it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
So-
just hard for me to make sense of it.
Yeah. And that's, I was hoping that that's what it was. I was hoping it was an understanding thing, because understanding things are a little bit easier to sort of to resolve. Right? If it was like, oh, I just don't like math, well, that's a little bit different. Right? We have to find then some way to like math in order to get it better, or to do better. So with the understanding piece, what sort of are you aware of any of the extra math programs that we have on campus?
I mean, I've heard of them.
Right. I know you're really involved with like extracurricular activities, which makes after-school programming tough. But in sort of looking at a school need and like how can we better serve the needs of all of our students, that was one of the things that came up last year in the assessment. And one of the things we did is we implemented a lunchtime program. So I could take a meet and greet sort of for math studies. So there's a group that gets together during lunchtime. You can set it up as many days a week as you want. It's really just open. It's like open forum. But it's at lunch breaks. Students usually run out and grab their lunch, and then they bring it into this classroom. And in this classroom, there's a teacher, a math teacher, who's committed their lunch period to this tutorial each day of the week. It's a different teacher, but the students pretty much stay the same, right? So you get to know the students in there, and they have some students in there that use mentoring, student-to-student teaching, but also the teachers available if the need be. So is that an environment? Does that sound like something that you might be willing to utilize?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what would you say in giving this a shot? I mean, one of the things that we have to look at is that it would be, sort of time bound and specific. And so, can you come up with some sort of specific time bound?
I think it would be doable to maybe go every like Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay, Tuesday and Thursday for the lunch breaks. And how long would you be willing to give that a shot for, so we can look back? Let's say if you do it for a quarter, then that gives us a good chance to sort of look back and see, like, okay, the first quarter you did this was your grade. The second quarter you got involved, here we are now with this math program, and this is your grade. Then it gives you a sense to compare. Would you be willing to bite that much off, like a whole quarter? Or, yeah.
2 days a week, I think we can do that.
Okay, so and if you wanted to go extra, of course, that would just be extra on your goal.
Mm-hmm.
right? So we would just be looking for, okay. So lunchtime math tutorial, 2 times a week. Let's go ahead and jot this down. What was that? Tuesday, Thursday?
Yeah.
For
Okay.
second quarter. Sounds great. That's a good job. Now, this sense of feeling lost or like I don't have any direction and my friends all have this going on, right? We still haven't we haven't looked into that. We haven't really, and that's the sort of reason why you came in today. So I definitely want to I want to work on that with you. I want to address that with you. What are your thoughts about when you get questions in so many of your classes, literature, history, these open-ended questions, right? What do you do to answer those questions? Do you just know the answer?
No.
No, not usually, right? What do you have to do?
Research.
You have to research, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a strategy that you think might work for this feeling, or this sense of being lost? Let's look at it like a question, right? Let's pose it like a similar question, right? What am I going to do with my life? If that was presented to you in one of your classes, you're saying you researched the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard because I don't know.
Right.
But yes, I have to research.
You have to research. And so in real life, like in our life, when we have that sort of question, is it too far out there to say that you might have to do some research?
Yeah, makes sense.
Makes pretty good sense. Good. Well, we have some resources, some programs available to us that do just that help us, that give us a platform to research sort of life, research interests, right, or our skill set, or what is meaningful to us in a job or a major or something like that, right? And so it's about gathering chunks of information, right, and having those chunks of information and taking a look at it and giving myself sort of a sense of direction through that, right? And this is research about ourselves, about what we are interested in, what our skill set makes us most equipped for in terms of what kind of job, what career, what profession, what type of work, and as well as what's meaningful to me in a job as far as interaction with people, or is it more meaningful to accomplish something on a regular basis, or to sweat when I'm working? Different things may be meaningful to different people. And what we know from research is that when people match their jobs with these sort of assets, whether it's skills or characteristics, or personality, or interests, that when we match up on the more of these assets that we match up on with our job, the more satisfied people are in their work. And so this, to me, is a really good place to start, and a good direction, a good way to go about starting to find some direction. Before these types of assessment tools were available to us, it was always kind of like a guessing game for people. And oftentimes people would get stuck in careers. nowadays we're blessed. We have these resources available to us, so we kind of like evaluate ourselves, assess the professional community, make matches, and say like, yeah, that's what I want to do, or at least check it out in that direction and have some backup plans and that sort of thing. So good is starting the second semester. So just when we come back from break, we will be doing, I will be hosting workshops, career development workshops. They will be after school, and so we'll have to match it up, and maybe if there's a good turnout and there's a need felt, maybe we can have more available. But definitely like to make sure that you have those dates, and you can set something up for attending those workshops, where in which you can start exploring these assessments and developing your own career profile. How does that sound?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So do you think the two of us together could come up with sort of a specific, measurable, meaningful, attainable, a SMART goal for, you want to give it a shot yourself?
Maybe try to have 2 or 3 career choices by the end of the second quarter that I would be interested in pursuing.
Okay.
After research and workshops, maybe being able to pinpoint a couple of careers that interest me.
Okay. So definitely attending the workshop then, completing the assessments, and then matching at least you said 2.
Mm-hmm.
2 careers to do further research on and kind of do your own sort of exploring, and maybe we can check back then, say a month or so after that, definitely by the end of the year, before we leave for summer break. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, let's make sure that we get this jotted down and that goal jotted down together for you to have record of that, and I have record of that, and so that we can check back on these things at our next follow-up session.
Okay.
Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right.